All right, in the previous video, we talked a little bit about the need for descriptive statistics, the third of the 4 steps in our 4-step process of statistics. The idea being that you want to draw a conclusion about your population, that's our 4th step, but it's really, really hard to do when all you have is raw data. That's what you get out of your 2nd step. So we kind of need a step in between there to convert the raw data into a more usable form, to summarize and analyze that raw data. That's exactly what descriptive statistics are. And in this video, we're going to work towards that goal of coming up with descriptive statistics. And what you need to do, a good first step if you're going to be calculating descriptive statistics is, wait, you want your calculator to calculate stuff about this data? You better tell your calculator this data. That's all we're going to do in this video. I'm just going to show you how to input data into a calculator, into a graphing calculator with statistical functions, ones that look something like this, the one I have over here. I'm going to show you a couple things that can go wrong. I'm going to show you a couple little fixes, and then we'll be done with this video. So that's kind of the plan. I guess without further ado, what you want to do to start is you want to hit the stat key here. The stat key is where a lot of the statistical functions that we'll be using in this class live, although not all of them, as you will see, but a lot of them do. You hit the stat button, it should bring you to a screen that looks something like this. What this is saying is under the stat menu, there are 3 different submenus. There's the edit submenu, the calc submenu, and the tests submenu. And we will be doing a lot of things in each of those menus in this class. However, for today, when we're just trying to enter data for this video, everything lives under the edit menu. So when you're trying to put data into a calculator, it's under the stat menu, and then the edit submenu. Everything you'll be doing will be one of these 5 options right here. And so starting out, if you just want to type these numbers in, it's under the edit list. The first thing listed says edit. And so that's what you want to be under. Note that that's currently highlighted, so I can just hit enter. I could also hit the number 1 and it would jump to the first thing in this list. Brings up something that looks like this. These are the different lists that your calculator has. And there's more of them off to the right. If you scroll to the right, you'll see additional lists. Like this L5 is my 5th list, L6 and so on. If I scroll back over, L1 in my calculator already has data in it. You might see data in several of your lists, or you might not see any data in any of your lists. If you have data in a list left over from someone else using your calculator or from a previous problem, you probably don't want that data anymore. You can get that data out of your list. And the way you do that, you hit the up arrow key here, so that what you're highlighting is the list itself, as opposed to the first observation in the list. So when this says L1 parentheses 1 equals, it's saying the first observation in my list L1 is the number 8, which you can see right here. But I don't want this list of data. I want the first observation to be a 1. I want to type these guys all in. So I'm going to get rid of this list. I'm going to highlight the list itself, L1, which contains all of the observations. And then I'm going to hit the clear key. And if you hit clear, it'll say now L1 equals nothing at all. Hit enter, and you'll see that everything in the list went away. For what it's worth, a lot of people, they'll highlight L1, and then instead of hitting clear, they'll hit delete. And then they'll be like, oh no, my list is all gone. Where'd L1 go? Undo, undo. And they'll hit it a bunch of times. They'll be worried that they've lost all their lists. If you're ever missing lists, it's not a big deal. You can get them back. All you got to do is hit the stat key. That brings you back to this screen where we were last time. And then go down to the 5th option, set up editor. And if you hit enter twice, set up editor, done. Now when you go back into your lists, those lists will be there. But as long as you didn't hit the delete key, you didn't have to do any of that. You have all your lists. You have a blank list. They don't all need to be blank. Just one blank wherever you want to type in these observations. I'm going to put mine in L1. You can put yours wherever the hell you want. If you'd rather do it in L2, feel free. The way you type in your observations, well, it's currently asking me for my first observation in L1. So I just tell it that's the number 1. Hit 1 and then enter. You hit enter. That 1 is populated up in the list here. And now it's asking for the second observation. Second observation in this list is also a 1. Then I got a 2, another 2, another 2, 2 3s, a 4. And if you want to play along, enter this data into your own list, and you can follow the steps. If you don't want to, hang on, I'll be done in a second. 8, 9, 10, 12, and 23. And there's my list. A couple good checks in here. It's currently asking me for my 16th observation in the list. That's good because there's 15 observations in there. If there's already 15, the next one will be the 16th. It's asking for the 16th. That means there's 15 already in there. Good, I wanted there to be 15. Cool, these all look right. If you want to double check them, you could scroll back up just to take a look at them. Say you found a mistake. What if this 4, you meant for this to be 42 instead? No problem, just highlight the 4 and you can just overwrite it. Put in 42, hit enter, now there's a 42 there. But you don't want it to be a 42, you want it to be a 4, so we'll change it back to a 4. You're like, all right, but what if I didn't make a mistake? What if I left the 4 out altogether? What if that was gone? And I wanted to put, what if I meant for there to be an observation in between the 4 and the 5? Right? What if there was supposed to be a 4.5 in there and I forgot to put it in? Just put your cursor where you want it, and then you can insert observations. The way you insert them is there's an insert key. It says INS. It's typically above the delete key. In my calculator, it's above the delete key in blue. So I hit this blue key and then the delete key to insert another observation. Note that it defaults with just a 0. So if I wanted to be 4.5, I type in 4.5, and now between the 4 and a 5, there's a 4.5. All right, now if I go all the way back down to the bottom, now it's asking me for my 17th observation, meaning there's 16 in the list. Like, oh, I didn't want 16. I only wanted there to be 15. I go looking back in here, and I'm like, oops, I put in a 4.5. I didn't mean there to be a 4.5. How do you get rid of an observation if you accidentally put in too much? Just hit the delete key. So second and then the delete key to insert a new observation, just the delete key to get rid of an observation. It's worth pointing out that sometimes the order of your lists matter, but at this point in the class, they don't matter at all. So if you really did forget a 4.5, you didn't have to insert it. You could just type it down at the bottom of the list if you felt like it. At any rate, that's how you type observations into a list. A couple other statistical things that your calculator can do concerning entering data in lists is also under that stat menu. I guess, yeah, so I'm going to hit this stat button, take me back to the last list that I was in. If my list was not sorted, note that it is assorted. It's going in increasing order from 1 up to 23. But if it were just a bunch of numbers at random and I wanted them ascending for some reason, I could tell my calculator to sort my list in an ascending fashion. Or maybe they're ascending, but I want them to be descending. I could say sort my list in a descending fashion. Maybe I'll demonstrate that real quick. Sort my list in a descending fashion is a function in your calculator. And what your calculator wants you to know, or wants to know, is what list do you want it to sort descending? Well, I want it to sort L1, that's the list that I just edited, in this descending fashion. And so you'll notice above the 1 key in blue is a little L1 here. If I hit second and then 1, it's saying sort in a descending order your list L1. Hit enter, it'll say done. Don't believe it. Go back to stat and then under edit where these lists live, and you'll see the exact same observations except now they're sorted descending from biggest to smallest. I want them to look like they looked here. So I'm going to hit stat and then I'm going to sort ascending instead of descending to put it back to how it used to be. Go back to stat and edit, and there's my list back to how it used to be. It's worth pointing out that at this point in the class, and really I think throughout the class, you'll never need to sort your list. So these are just bonus things that I'm telling you that you can do if you feel like doing, but you don't have to do. I think that that's all that I have as far as entering data into a list. So I'm going to stop this video here.